So, Steve, welcome. Thank you for joining us again. It's really good to see you.
Good to see you, Ben.
How's things your end? Busy or not?
Never been busier in a way, because when I'm touring, I tend to sort of like sloth out in between dates, particularly in the summer when there's like a couple of festivals every weekend. And that sort of defines me. That is what I am. I'm the bloke that does festivals, and I come home and I'm pretty useless to the family, and I don't tend to do much. I tend to tick over, and I think that's the right thing to do as well. But but with all this enforced lockdown stuff, I'm a bit more productive, and there's no, the diary was wiped clean completely a few weeks ago. So I'm getting on with stuff. I'm developing new skills. I've been working on some new material. I'm doing some collaborations that aren't necessarily determined by making the same acoustic landscape. The Bristol Slaver we've just done, and that's had a great reaction. So in a guilty sort of way, I'm enjoying it, but I'm starting to miss the banter and the camaraderie and the general fellowship that goes with touring that we've built up over the years.
Fantastic. Well, what we're going to talk about today is the challenge of being a solo performer, kind of the traditional singer-songwriter thing. Because for many people that start out wanting to craft a career as a working musician, that kind of standalone performance is the thing that initially defines them. And by that, I mean that so many people start out wanting to kind of be the next Ed Sheeran or the next Steve Knightley, and they need to learn to craft that set and that first solo performance to a point where people sit up, take notice. And interestingly, I've heard you speak on this before, and you used a term that really resonated with me, and that is when they make the audience feel really safe. So what we're going to do for the next half an hour or so is just kind of unpack that a little bit and look at what that means in a very practical sense. Often we've kind of talked about kind of abstract aspects of the industry, but today this is got a lot more practical information in it, I think. So that's really exciting, and we're looking forward to doing that. So those of you that don't know, Steve, tell us a little bit about your kind of background and how you kind of came to the point where Show of Hands was born, and you guys are probably one of the premier acoustic performers in the entire UK now. But give us a kind of really brief background, because you've been there, you've trod on those boards, you've done the open mic nights, you've done the solo performances. To kind of bring us from that point to where we are now.
Well, when I was in my teens, there was a folk club of some sorts every night of the week, but not just in pubs, being run by folkies, as it were, but in the universities and in the colleges. So you had an audience of between 18 and 21, very much into acoustic music. And also in those days, all of the major rock bands always had some acoustic troubadour opening, whether it was Roy Harper or whether it was Ralph McTell or Cat Stevens or whatever. So it was quite a cool aspirational genre when you are 14 or 15 and you want to hang out with people. And the structure that we had typically was doing 3 or 4 songs as a floor spot in a folk club. And in a sense, that's analogous to the open mic situation now. You don't have quite that same structure in place for younger players, but there's a lot of open mic setups, and occasionally you might get asked to open for someone who's drawn a crowd. So it's like, how do you maximize the effect of that? And gradually, as you get better and better, the sets get longer, and then you're booked in your own right. So I came through that pathway with a bit of a detour in my 20s in the rock and roll world in London, but I've returned very much to that. And now we have a lot of younger artists on tour with us, and we give them an amazing structure. We introduce them, they have the best sound and lights possible. And it's fascinating watching them develop their skill set, even in the course of a 25-day tour. And if they ask, I'll say to them, you know what, that opening song, it's a bit too long, that intro. Or why don't you try walking in front of the monitors at the end and take a bow? Or you left the stage when people were still clapping, you turned your back on them. So if asked, and often I am, I'll give people the benefit of my wisdom. But this particular little discussion is very much either open mic or floor spot or short support. And it's not about the material itself so much. I'm not here to tell people you should be singing songs about this or that, or you should emulate this artist. It's really, given what it is you do, how do you maximize the connection with the audience? And that's That's the key word. Safe hands, the connection. And, how do you go about doing that?
Cool. So kind of talk us through that really. From the start of, I guess there's some preparation in this in the in the lead up to a set. Kind of talk us through that. We've got to do it in chronological order, if that's all right. From the
first thing I'd say is don't sit down. If you don't have to sit down, stand up. There's something about the physicality of playing that I think that when you're standing up connects a bit more, unless you're someone that does something so close and emotional and intense, and you don't ever really change gear to the big thrashy stuff, but you do, and you draw people into a very still, enclosed space. And that's quite rare that you see people like Chris Wood do that. And he does his thing almost to himself, and the audience has to sort of enter his world. Same with Richard Shindell. But most people, they want to be a bit more rousing and make a bit more of an instant connection. So I wouldn't sit down unless the needs of the instrument dictate. It's lap steel guitar or accordion.
Yeah, naturally.
I would stand up. Second thing, controversially, don't wear shorts.
You've seen my legs then, obviously.
Think of anyone you think is cool and ask if you've ever seen them in shorts. It's not about your comfort. You opt out of that the moment you decided to stand in front of people. Yeah. You don't go to see Hamlet. You know what I mean? It's like, now this is a very, very personal thing. I don't really want to see people's knobbly knees when they're playing. It's, I'm treading into dangerous water, but I would, the tradition is to wear something dark. The lights prefer that. If you wear something dark, it brings out the features of your facial expressions. I wouldn't wear shorts.
I think if I've been on the road with Phil Beer for the last 20 years, I think I'd be anti shorts as well. So yeah, we'll give you that. Unless
you're the Chili Peppers and you're ripped, you know what I mean, or you're a surfy dude band. But that's the first thing. The second thing is, don't get introduced, a big hand for so-and-so. Get up there and go, oh, hi. This is a tune first. You know what your opening song is, so put the capo on first if you're using a capo. Get in tune first. I've seen people be introduced and go, okay, yeah, we'll do that one. No, you may have had a week to have prepared for this one moment, your big moment, and you've decided for those 15 minutes you want to connect with an audience. So do everything you can to make them feel at ease. Tune first, have it in your head what you're going to be playing. If necessary, and this is something I often ask always compares to do, let me go on stage, let me plug in, let me check everything's working, let me put my guitar in the stand, disappear for just 30 seconds. Often there'll be some background music playing, then give the compere the thumbs up. There's nothing worse than someone saying, and now a big hand for so-and-so, and you wander up and you go, click, bang, lead, adjust mic, People almost forgive you doing that on stage. Sometimes the lights can be dimmed. You can convey, I haven't really started yet, okay, thumbs up, look around, drink, picks, good. I'm good to go. Give it 30 seconds. Let everyone refresh the moment. Please welcome. It never fails to work like that. So there's what you're trying to convey, particularly to an audience that's never seen you before, is are we in safe hands? And before issues of PA or sound, or, they're looking around, somebody gets introduced, they want to know that that person, A, is competent. You might be as nervous as hell, but you know what you're doing, and that you're glad to be there. So you can convey that by your body language and by the assurance with which you start. And the other thing I would do is this thing here. Now, the good thing about a music stand is that they're very, very easy to stamp on. That. And if you live near a motorway, you might be able to put it so that a lorry could go over it and flatten it forever. If it still seems to be working, you might know somebody with a forge or a foundry or who can melt it down. No. What you're saying to the audience is, I couldn't be bothered to learn the song.
Yeah.
I know I've had all week to think about this moment, but I couldn't be bothered. How can you connect with an audience when you're looking down like that? Now, if you're in a show, or you're doing an ensemble piece, or if you're doing something that's complex and perhaps is more theatrical, obviously you need to be looking for cues or clues or prompts. But for an ordinary sing to a small crowd or a large crowd, music stands, I think, are the kiss of death, really. Unless, again, you may have memory problems, you may have difficulty with certain things. It may be something that somebody's asked you to do as a special occasion or a dedication, and you can say, I don't normally do this, but what I've done in the past with a new song, I say, there's always a first time to hear a song, and this is it. So forgive me, and I got a little bit of tape and I'll put it on the mic stand, and you then set up the situation. But to have it as a default, I wouldn't do that. So that's all the physical things that you can do. The second thing, the third or fifth thing, people come up and they go, those are lights.
Yeah.
They are designed to illuminate your face. You know, and there's nothing worse. And you see it a lot on the folk scene. People go, you know what? My rule of thumb is if I can see the audience, they probably can't see me. You know, if you think about that. If you're being so brightly lit that the audience is in darkness, that means they can see every expression, every nuance of the way that you play. And if you ask them to be turned down so that you're in gloom, then again, your ability to connect has been minimized. So look comfortable. Look like you are glad to be in that space, and look like you've been waiting for it, and look like you're prepared. You know, so that's the first thing I'd say.
It does, doesn't it? When somebody kind of goes immediately on stage, and their first kind of thing is like kind of headlights for the cliche. It gives there's an insecurity that translates to the audience very, very easily, and that's not a good way to start the set. Absolutely.
I did a workshop about 10 years ago. I had 12 people, and I said, in a minute, in no particular order, I'm going to ask you to play your best shot. You know, the one song that you would always play in an emergency, what always works for you. And I said, I'm going to introduce you, and I'm not going to tell you. And I say, okay, please will you welcome Barry? And a guy comes up and goes, no, okay, yeah, no, that, okay. I said, how long have you had to think about this moment, you know? And he went, and I said, well, what is it you do? He said, I'm a surgeon. Okay. So someone comes, you know, can we reverse the situation? And I go into your working environment. Scalpel, no, forceps. What's it? What do we know? What do we do? Yeah, more. What's that thing? Anesthetic. More. Same with an airline pilot. You know. So look like you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going like this, and they're gradually. Oh, and it takes a long time to reclaim the moment after you've done that. So lights. Stand up, no shorts, look like you're glad to be there, and be prepared. That's before you actually start, you know, the playing itself. Then it comes to the material.
Yeah.
You know.
So talk us through kind of the process that you go in terms of choosing a set.
Assume everything works.
Yeah.
Assume you're in tune. Assume that there's a fairly seamless transition into you playing. Here's a good way of starting. You can go. This is called I Promise You. I promise you. A little intro over the chords is a great way. If it's someone doing the sound, it gives them a chance just to get the sound right. But if there's not, you know, you're settling in. Make that opening song something that you're utterly comfortable with, that you've played 1,000 times. Even if you say, you've heard me play this before, this is called, you know, even if you have to slightly apologize for it being the same one.
Ordinarily, Steve, Sorry, we keep cutting out a little bit there, but ordinarily, would you literally take to the stage and kick straight in with your instrument before you kind of address the audience or begin the vocals? Would you just go straight in?
And the lighting guys love it if we totally shut up. They really, really love it. You know, because you walk on stage. Now, obviously, we're talking at concert level, and the lights go up. The light comes up on me, rather than, how you doing, everybody? It's good to be back. Thank you. Yeah, sorry about the so-and-so. Hope you enjoyed. This is called so-and-so. I've already lost that moment of drama.
Yeah. By
that setup. But if I was doing something, if I was doing like a 3-set warm-up, I would come on. It's called I Promise You. Just speak over the intro. And in that first song, people are thinking, okay, they're soaking up every bit of information about you. Your look, the general way you're looking around the room. You're looking like you're glad to be there. Even if you have to go, just turn me up a bit. Okay. Even a little instruction, if you need it, you know, you may be in the sound monitor situation, you might need a little bit more volume, but none of this.
Yeah.
Which we've all seen a great deal of, you know.
We've all done.
Just people don't notice mistakes; they notice your reaction. You know, even if you start off in different keys, it's like, we're going to start that one again. Here we go. You know, just don't be discomforted if you can. But that first song, it's not that it's throwaway, but keep it fairly light and I'd say fairly rhythmic and something that is approachable. And then on the second song, you can start to become a bit more, you know, even as that song finishes. It's a song I've been playing for a couple of years now, and I think the subject matter is pretty obvious, but excuse me while I tune. There we go. This is all about wrecking on the Cornish coastline, called tall ships. So you could do something a bit more moody. You can have enough of a chat to cover over any little capo movement. And it's quite good if you have like a little set routine until it, you know, unless you've done it for years and years and years, a little story or a little anecdote to set up the song and to cover that, you know, that moment of confusion that you can have. You know, or you can actually say, you know, excuse a second, need to be in tune for this one. There we go. Yeah. And then sort of start. So you've got more time than you think. You know, people are watching you and fairly intently, but as long as you just say, just a sec, okay, no, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this one. You know, be calm and controlled. And the other thing, don't do this. You know, don't do like a, first we must bear the winter. Thank you. What are you thanking them for? They haven't clapped yet. Everybody does that as a nervous reaction. You know, the winter. Just acknowledge the applause when it started. But I know so many people that thank the audience before they've even clapped. Yeah. And the other thing people do is they go, down, 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 clap, 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 clap. Turning their back, you know. Ralph McTell always said to us, just thanks. Just a little acknowledgement, thanks, you know. The other thing, try, and you do see this a lot, you see a lot of people, they've got the mic there and they only look like that. Yeah. You know, look around the room in between, you know, don't, if you don't like to look at people, look at the spaces in between them. You know, people sometimes say, it felt like you looked right at me and were singing to me. It's all technique, you know. I'm looking at the camera now, but I can look 2 inches aside, whatever, and even more so in an audience, you know. So you look in the spaces in between and
Do you have any kind of hard and fast rules regarding eye contact with the audience? Is that something that you consciously? I know if I'm speaking at a conference or something, I'll kind of make a point of changing eye contact with an audience member during a full stop or a comma. Do you have any kind of rules that you work to as a performer in that respect?
I don't seek eye contact particularly. Often the way that we're lit normally, it's not really possible. But the audience doesn't know that. They do think that you are looking at them and looking at them directly. Yeah, but try and simulate the fact. I think when you're speaking, you're right. I've listened to a lot of speakers who do say they try and find someone and make it like they're talking to a lot of people individually. And I think that does work. But as I say, I've got some professional friends who look forward and that's it. You know, you have to be on the mic when you're singing. You know, I've seen an awful lot of people that far away from a mic. It's a sound engineer's nightmare, particularly the classic SM58. I think I've got one. You know, you got to be, you're not rock and roll. You don't have to be eating it, but you've got to be a couple of inches away from the mic. But even then in between, ba-dun-da-dun-da, and sometimes the drama of coming back to the mic is, he doesn't say I am, hey, you know, little tiny exclamations or whatever. So mic technique is important like that. Sing over the intros, that always works. The other thing I would say is there's nothing inherently interesting about a load of chords.
Okay.
You know, for example, say the chords to this song are, I promise you warm nights, but first we must bear the winter, and A minor. See, there's nothing interesting about but first we must bear the winter. Starting to listen. You've lost it. Just playing the chords that underpinned what you've just sung, unless you're Martin Simpson and have done the most amazing bit of decoration, it's not always inherently interesting.
Yeah.
If first you must bear the winter, and you might shorten your song by a minute, but there's no, as I say, there's not, you see it a lot. People play the backing to what they've just sung. Get on with the song. Even as I say, even if you shorten the song by a minute or two, there's nothing wrong with about being concise. I don't think.
I think that's really important, because the amount of times that you do, I've heard incredibly talented people that have disengaged with an audience, and myself as a member of the audience included, because they've gone off on these interludes, which is fine when you've got a lead guitarist playing over the top of you and doing a solo and blowing the audience away. But for you as a singer-songwriter, it's inherently boring, as you say, just thrashing the chords.
Yeah, I mean, often the beauty being with Phil is, even if I have like a crisis of remembering lyrics or whatever, I can just look to him and he can put some decoration in. But it's hard to do that on your own, unless you're a real virtuoso like Martin or Richard Thompson. So
you touched there, Steve, on forgetting lyrics, and I've been at many show of hands gigs where you've gone back to the archives, and I can see that kind of not look at horror, but I've realised that the lyrics that you've sang were not necessarily those that were on the original record. You deal with it so well, and you talked about your reaction. Talk us through what happens when that inevitably does happen.
Most of the times you see us do different lyrics is not because we've forgotten them, but because they've changed and modified and updated. But sometimes I do genuinely corpse. And what's really terrifying, and this is an odd, like a trust game, if you just jump mindlessly, they normally come to you just in time. And sometimes it's like, you know, when you're trying to remember someone's name, you put your mind on random search and do something else, and it comes to you. Whereas you go, is it Joe, is it J, or is it B, or whatever it is? So sometimes it's best to sort of as I say, just to trust the judgment. And if you get a word wrong, people don't notice the word wrong. They notice your mistake to it, you know. Like Santiago. And when the country was bought, no, it should be torn. But if I go, when the country was bought, sorry, torn, they wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
You know, country was torn. It's the whoops. It's that what they notice, you know. Once, the best example I've ever seen is we're playing with Phil once. I'd lost my voice at this festival. I couldn't hit the high notes of Santiago. And I was really croaking. And I said to Phil, even as we were playing, I said, do you know the second verse? He said, do you know the second verse? He went, yeah. This is all off mic. He went, yeah. And I backed away from the mic, and he walked forward and he went, we bought. And he came back, he went, apparently not. And the apparently not totally destroyed me. I corpsed so much I couldn't stand. It just the insouciance of that word of, oh, apparently not. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
But back to the set. The mindless, easy, relaxing first number. The second number with a bit of content.
Okay.
Maybe an unaccompanied song. You know, think about what you can accomplish as a soloist. Can you do something bluesy, something melodic, an instrumental? How many different things can you do before you tick the same box again? Yeah. And give an audience an example of each of them, because they go, all right, singer-songwriter, but that's a bluesy song. Oh, that's a funny song. Oh, that's tongue-in-cheek. Or that's wow, that's angry stuff. You know, whatever it is. And the little anecdote to link them. But you have to be honest about the different feels that you can accomplish and try and give an example of each of them. But I'd say the middle song in a 3 or 4 song set is the one with the content and the sort of depth. And you might want to finish off with a chorus song. And so, you know, how do you get people to sing a chorus? Well, you don't go, well, the chorus of this one is, where there's a mine or a hole in the ground, that's where I'm heading, that's where I'm bound. Look for me under the load or inside the vein, where the copper, the clay, you've lost them. Yeah. Last in, running your blood, they get under your thing, and leaving the, you've lost them already. You know, they're not going to remember that. But they might after the first. Where there's a mine, come on. Where there's a mine or a hole in the ground. Sometimes you can cue people, you know, with a little tiny, if you try and teach them that endless chorus, you're just setting yourself up to look like you failed in a task because they're not going to remember it.
Yeah.
You know, by the 3rd or 4th time, you might be able to just, where there's a mine, or I promise you, or, oh, come on, help me out, or a bit louder. You know, it's like that awful, let me see your hands, you know, if people are going, I ain't doing that. It's like telling a joke, isn't it? You've set yourself up for a moment to fail.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like, you know, this one, come on, and when everyone sings, that's glorious. That's a lovely feeling. But it takes a while before your songs have that sort of resonance with people. Unless it's a cover version. You could do a good cover version and everyone will know the song. You know, but don't do the endless introduction of a chorus, as I say, because that's. I did see years ago. Phil and I were playing with a country band, Arizona Smoke Review, and we had a guy doing an opening spot, and I still don't know why he did this, but he did Vincent, and he's like. It's like. Starry, starry, da da da. Paint your palette blue and da. He didn't know any of the words. He carried on. Look out on a something day with eyes da 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 da. And there seemed to be no pattern to his forgetfulness. And it's like we were just there at the back going. And he carried on. And his final bit was, I could have told you, Vincent, the world was never meant for someone as da-da-da-dee-dee. And it was, stop, stop. Maybe a mic stand would have rescued him then, but people do put themselves through agonies for these moments.
In terms of mic technique, Steve, and I know because of my interest in show of hands and having followed you since those early days, one thing that you are a master of is almost natural compression and the ability to use a microphone to its fullest dynamic range. And you're a master of kind of pulling back when necessary, but also to kind of create ambience in the room with the proximity of yourself to a microphone. Is that something that comes with experience, or are there some kind of rules around that?
Generally speaking, stay on the mic and give the sound engineer a lot, or the PA system, a lot of information to work with. You see a lot of American artists, for some reason, Richard Schindel will go, you stay here, and he does this a lot. And sometimes people notice that movement more than the drop-in sound that he's trying to recreate. I think a lot of PAs these days have compression built in so that you limit the louder bits. But even to turn from there to ba-da, even an inch, just reduce the not the distortion, but perhaps the extreme volume. So, that is very much a question of singing a lot into a mic, and some people's voices the mic really loves. It just likes to capture them. I mean, Phil can be singing that far away from a mic and he's still totally audible. He's got a lot of mid-range in his voice. But generally speaking, I try and stay on the mic, and I'll just back away a little bit. But then I will do, can't hear you. I do some stuff off mic as a dramatic thing, just to sort of like, the way you can hear Springsteen shouting, yeah, come on. It's just a sort of ad-libby thing. And that all adds to that idea that you are glad to be there playing to people,
When things go horribly wrong, because they do from time to time, you die on your arse on stage. It's happened to everybody. How do you bounce back from that as a singer-songwriter? From my experience, it's generally been with the band, and you can kind of bounce off each other, or you can blame somebody else. But when it's you, what's the psychology of kind of bouncing back when a set doesn't go down as well as you think it would?
Well, it's not a question of the set not going down well. It's a question of moments within that set that don't, we very rarely don't connect at the end of a night, but you can have moments that aren't working. And if you break a string, there's nothing you can do but say, sorry, folks, going to start again. Some people are very clever at even doing an unaccompanied song as they change, or telling a story as they change, or you have another guitar, or we go to another song that doesn't need a guitar, for example. But sometimes you just have to say, sorry, guys, we're going to start that one again, if it does fall apart. If it's in a band setting and people just go to the chorus too early, just don't acknowledge it. Don't glare at each other and go, oh. I know a well-known bass player, every time he gets a wrong note, he goes, oh, like that. And people notice that more than the odd note that he misses. People in bands often see a song through the prism of their own contribution. Oh, I really like this one. Oh, my girlfriend really likes this one. And from an audience point of view, it's a bunch of people playing a song, not individual moments. So I think if you don't let on, if it's a minimal mistake, if you start off in the wrong key, have a laugh and just start it again. Or you can say, look, we want to get this right for you, so we're going to start this one. People are very forgiving. In
terms of the psychology, let's say you do a set that it hasn't been well received or whatever yet. I'm asking now specifically about the kind of the mental state and the psychology of you as an individual. And I'm going back perhaps to your early days. There must have been times where you've come off and thought, that's not gone down great. It's like an athlete kind of struggling with a performance in like a footballer having a rubbish game. How do you pick yourself up from that and kind of go again?
You have to say it was your fault. This idea that there's a bad audience or something external for you is really not good for performers. It doesn't help them grow. It's the same, it's the same with human psychology. Yeah. You've got to hold your hand up. That audience became an entity in front of you, and you didn't tick the box. The idea is they have this collective reaction to what you do.
Yeah.
And they forget about the day. They forget about being individuals with issues. You make these disparate group of people have a collective response, which seems to be an important thing for people to have. Yeah. Whether it's in sport or whether it's in an audience. And if it hasn't happened, you can look at technical reasons why it didn't happen as easy or mitigate against it. If the room's too bright, if people are aware of the spaces in between themselves, if it's half empty, it's harder to create a collective experience. If the PA is too loud, and it's like too mid-rangey, you're responsible for the sound. You either employ or don't employ sound engineers, or you haven't got your system right. It's your fault again. But if it's like that, that can mitigate against it. If the band isn't getting on, no amount of brilliant sound and rehearsal can compensate for that fact.
Yeah.
If they don't buy into the idea of you, then all the technical stuff in the world won't work like that. Sometimes if the room is too dead, in some theatre spaces, people only hear the immediate environment clapping and singing. So you're not aware of having this collective weapon in the audience's armory. Likewise, on stage, you tell a funny line and you only hear a few people laugh, and you can easily think, we're struggling here. Yeah. The room's not helping you. In a more ambient space, particularly one, some of the sort of a church or a chapel or something that's designed for the human voice, you can hear people singing and laughing and clapping. Sometimes that can be too ambient and it's working against you, that some of the detail of the music can be lost. Yeah. But all of those things are a given. It's your job to work with them and to rise above them. And I have this thing about a checklist. You have a checklist as a performer. Is anybody going to be there? Is the PA good? The lights, are the new songs going to work? Is so-and-so going to be there in time? All these things. The audience is a totally different checklist. They walk into the room. Are these people glad to be there? And are we in safe hands? Before all considerations of sound and material. And they come up to you and they say, you like it, you're having a good time. It's very easy to go, yeah. No, that's the first thing on an audience's checklist. And that's what people like Springsteen know. That's the contract. Yeah. You pay money for you to create this collective reaction, and that's what you have to do. And even if it is a problem, even if we've had situations where the PA has gone down, and we've walked off stage and come back and sorry about that and started again. You can't just write off the evening, it's a bad audience, and there again, you don't learn anything from that, even if there were factors that made it hard for you. The only time I ever really, I think, let an audience down, we did a festival in Germany about 8 years ago, and I spent the day drinking with the Levelers. Bad move.
Bad error.
I was hanging out with Mark Chadwick and the guys, and I wasn't drunk, but I lost all of my antenna and instinct to take the gig to another level for chorus singing. It was charmless and it was forced and it didn't work. And I thought, I'm never going to do that again. A sportsman wouldn't do that. And we are operating at that sort of level. And I'm aware we've moved away from the 3-song floor spot, but this would be reverse engineered, as it were.
Fantastic. I think for me, we've covered the things that I wanted to look at. Unless you've got anything, any of the kind of pearls of wisdom that you want to add, I think we've got what.
I just think. Oh, I forgot to say, if you are going to do a couple of songs, 3 songs, play them to family and friends first. Utterly essential. Just say, look, can you get 10 minutes? Just let them be your audience. Don't get hung up on their response, and don't do that, or don't do that, or you shouldn't do that. Find somebody that you can trust just to go, just be an audience to go, yeah. Don't cue them for a response. You'll be amazed at how much reassurance you'll get when you come to play. Oh, you didn't realize it took so long to change the capo. You didn't realize that was in the same key, blah, blah, blah. It does iron out a lot of stuff. Failing that, just record it into your smartphone
Yeah.
in real time. You know, walk in front of it as if you've just been introduced, and look back at it critically and go, okay, I was closing my eyes all the way through that. And the other thing is, occasionally sing a line to someone and say, what did I just sing? And if they go, oh, something about the track to, if they can't tell you what you've just sung, then you probably haven't pronounced it clearly enough, or your diction's not right. Okay. You know, you're singing words that have to connect to people. And I know some very senior, very well-regarded professionals. I can't understand a bloody word of what they're saying. And everybody comes up and says that. And it's too late to tell people sometimes, you know.
Well, one thing you touched on, Steve, that is very prevalent in the open mic circuit, specifically with those that are kind of really just beginning out on their kind of working musician journey, is, and you touched on it just then, is the closing of eyes. Yeah. And you'll have seen it countless times where people are on stage and they close their eyes. What's your take on that?
I might do it for a part of one song if it's a particularly emotional song, but what people often do is that they rationalize their shortcomings. They say they don't believe in doing a certain thing because they've never tried it. You know, they say, oh, I like to close my eyes, but it's like, this could get me into trouble. I'll trust an abstract painter if I can see them do something figurative. You know what I mean? Because they've chosen to do this. Yeah. So someone has chosen to be like that, but can do all the rabble-rousing stuff. I think, okay, you've made an informed choice. Yeah. All you're really saying is you find it difficult, therefore you don't believe in it. Yeah. Then I'm not so sure. You know, I hate chorus songs. Well, what ones? I know I don't. Yeah. And you sometimes find that in groups of people, which is why I sometimes am very wary of playing in bands. They reject an idea before they accomplish it. Okay. Oh, it's not going to work. Well, can we just try it? No, it's really not going to work. Well, can we just try it? Yeah. And then stand back and no point. It's not going to work.
Yeah, sure.
Rationalizing the fact that it might be difficult. They don't look cool. There's another thing going on there. But I'll be the first to say, yeah, you're right. Phil will say it won't work on the fiddle, and I'll say, well, I'll give it a go. And I'll go, yeah, you're right. What do you think? Yeah, no, it works better on the quattro, whatever it is. Accomplish an idea before you reject it is, I think, one of the rules of playing with anybody.
So my final kind of query, and then I think, unless you've got anything to add, we're pretty much there. In terms of the actual specific selection of songs,
yeah.
I guess part of it is your most popular, if you're limited it to 3. But how do you choose those 3 songs from your rep list? Because I guess the modern days, you look at your Spotify and see the 3 most popular. But of course, those that recordings don't necessarily translate to live as well. And back in the day, you kind of open mic came first. I know. I think of my own open mic circuit. And pretty much all the lads that are regulars have all got Spotify playlists, and they've all released material before they started doing the open mic circuit. The industry has changed it in that respect. Yeah. So how do you go about choosing those specific songs?
If I was a songwriter starting out, you have to commit to your material. You know, if you say that that's what you do, you know, as I said very early on in this talk, I'm not talking about the nature of the songs if you're generating original stuff.
Yeah.
You have a body of work that's been out there for a while. The last thing a festival audience wants to hear is, oh, there's a bunch of new songs.
Yeah.
You don't want to go and see the Rolling Stones and then not do Jumping Jack Flash and Satisfaction, you know. I'm not saying that that's the level we're at, but you get the general point. But none of those songs become standards unless you commit to them at a certain time.
Yeah.
And you really don't know what you've got until you've played it, I'd say 20 or 30 times. Yeah. The song develops and you go, you know, it's not really a finisher, is it? So you have to be honest about how it's connecting. So we try and get a balance of the, as I said, like the 3-song set. Here's a standard that everybody knows. Here's something new and moody. Here's a chorus song, but it might be a chorus song that eventually will be replaced by another chorus song that's in the repertoire. So you're always juggling, you know. I do know some people on the circuit who do the same set with the same intros in the same order for about 5 years. You know, they do their show. And you do see some very highly polished North American acts they do a routine show down to the second. You know, it's with the same intros. It's very, very slick, and it's brilliant the first time you see it. Second or third time, you're not quite so sure, you know. But yeah, look at what you've got, group it into different areas. There's your up-tempo, there's your storytelling, there's your moody, there's your chorus songs, there's your instrumental, there's your bluesy stuff, and then try and get the arc of it and a song from each of those areas to fulfill the needs at that moment. And the other thing I always do from an audience point of view, and I didn't know I did this quite to the level that I do, is visualize. I sit there as a member of the audience and think, what would be a good thing to happen now?
Yeah.
Miranda singing. An unaccompanied song. Phil to do something really fast. Okay, what would be a good piece of cinema now? Wouldn't it be good if maybe Steve and Phil got to the edge of the stage, did something purely acoustically? Didn't expect that. So you're constantly trying to think from an audience point of view, what would be a nice journey to go on, rather than, oh, here's a bunch of our songs in an order that is predetermined, blah, 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 blah. So that's generally how we build the set. And once we've got the set built after maybe six gigs, you know, balance of new songs, the odd cover, standards, blah, 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 then that tends to bed itself in for a tour.
Yeah.
Because there's lighting cues and there's effects cues and all sorts of other things. But even then, occasionally I'll say, sorry guys, we're going to do Cousin, we're going to do something different. It feels like people want to sing, you know.
Yeah. Brilliant. Steve, listen, I think we've covered everything that I wanted to. So thank you so much. It's really, really good to catch up.
Yeah,
We'll definitely do it again very, very soon.
Okay, mate.
God bless you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.